We live in interesting times. Today's stories. The mayor of Venice wants donations to restore his flood-damaged city. There's no end in sight for those protests in Hong Kong. Violence in Chile is robbing people of their sight. Opposites attract, and other unusual tales from around the world. An experiment to control mosquito-borne diseases. A church group helps the hungry in Vancouver. A look at futuristic homes. EBC Films' production of Guerrero continues to wow audiences. An inspirational concert in Vancouver. Filipino food hits the streets in Vancouver. Knights in shining armor. And just how many people can you stuff into a sauna? I'm Thomas I. Likeness with Eagle News, broadcasting from our studios in Edmonton, Canada, bringing you stories from around the globe. The mayor of Venice is asking for help as the city of Canals copes with damage from flooding and high tides. Luigi Bruniero has opened an account where people in Italy and people from around the world can contribute to the historic city's repair. Damage to historic buildings is still being assessed as officials try to safeguard priceless artifacts and works of art. And there seems to be support for Bruniero's fundraiser. Diana Ramirez, a Colombian tourist who's visiting from the United States, says she supports visitors asking to chip in for repairs.
I think it's a good thing. This is, a very beautiful city. It's very known internationally, with a lot of historic buildings, and I think that it's worth saving. And all these type of cities and all these type of buildings, and if the city, I'm pretty sure they're going to need help, because I'm pretty sure this is going to cost a lot of money. So I don't think it's a bad thing about asking maybe tourists in other countries if they can help out to relieve a little bit of all the costs that this is going to cost to Venice. Yeah.
Bruniero says he'll declare a state of disaster for the city. He's blaming the flood on climate change, adding the damage will leave a permanent mark on the city. Gabby Bruckner, a tourist from Germany, also believes the flooding is a result of a changing climate.
Because it's not normal. And I believe this is something to do with the climate change, with the one we have, and everybody denies. I'm afraid this will be worse.
Others say corruption has played a role in this disaster. Since 2003, a massive infrastructure project has been underway to protect the city, but it's been plagued by scandals, cost overruns, and delays. The plan calls for the construction of 78 floating gates to protect the city's lagoon during high tides. Not much change in Hong Kong, where violent demonstrations continue almost on a daily basis. The situation between pro-democracy protesters and the Chinese government remains at a standoff. Universities have become the focus of many protests lately, where black-clad demonstrators have occupied campuses. Chinese President Xi Jinping has said stopping the violence and controlling chaos remains his top priority. But during last week's chaos at several universities, Police Superintendent John See says officers exercised some restraint.
I think all of us will agree that the situation today is still really tense inside the university campus. And we consider that may not be the best time for police to intervene in order to avoid any violence, clashes, and confrontation at the moment. And that's why a few days ago we retreated from the number 2 bridge, and this is for the purpose of allowing more time for both sides to take a break and cool down.
Civil disobedience is increasing. Until last week, most protests were in the evenings and weekends. Now, they're disrupting life during the day. We hear about the violence in Chile as protesters demonstrate against increases in the cost of living. In this story, we see how the unrest has physically hurt those taking part in the civil disobedience. Those demonstrations in the South American country have cost some people their sight and left scores of others suffering from eye injuries. 18-year-old Carlos Vivenco says his face was covered with blood during violence at a protest. Vivenco lost sight in his left eye. He says he has more anger than fear, more hate than grief, and all of that is directed against the people who are shooting, mutilating, and torturing protesters. Vivenco is one of almost 200 people who have sustained eye injuries from pellets fired by police during the clashes. Musician Cesar Calozo also suffered an eye injury during the protests. At one protest, he says he felt a blow to the eye and then fell to the ground. He was later bandaged up. Dr. Mauricio Lopez is an ophthalmologist in El Salvador. He works shifts in Chilean hospitals and has done so for the past 20 years. Lopez says, sadly, Chile has a world record for the number of cases of blindness caused by conflict, more than any other conflict zone, such as Hong Kong, Spain, the Yellow Vests in Paris, or the Palestinian War. We'll take a break now from the chaos in this world. I want to show you a few offbeat stories, some of the unusual things that happen in the world that, generate a lot of talk around the water cooler at the office. They say opposites attract. Well, in this case, the two couldn't have been more different. But sadly, the friendship didn't last. At a safari park near Vladivostok, Russia, a Russian goat named Timur was originally sent to the park as prey for Amur, a Siberian tiger. Now, this was 4 years ago. The tiger did not touch the goat when it entered the enclosure because the goat showed no fear. The two quickly became inseparable. Park director Dmitry Mazentev described the unlikely friendship as a miracle. The two slept in the same enclosure, ate and played together. Amur even attempted to teach the goat how to catch prey. But the friendship soured as Timur grew more audacious and started challenging the big cat. Earlier this month, Timur got into an altercation with Amur. Mazentev says Timur's health then deteriorated and his heart stopped. The goat has been cremated and buried with what zoo officials say was full honors. Well, here's how some people in Guatemala recently spent a relaxing afternoon and at the same time helped preserve wildlife. On a Monterrico beach, tourists and locals helped a conservation group protect baby turtles. The turtles were hatched at an animal protection center. As the babies grew, they were ready to be released into the wild. Here we can see folks having a good time, relaxing, setting them free, and ensuring the species doesn't die out. An employee of the Animal Protection Center says last year they freed 75,000 baby turtles. Sometimes, no matter what the consequences, the challenge is just irresistible, and that must have been what was going through the head of 57-year-old Alain Robert. He's also known as the French Spider-Man. That's because of his exploits in climbing tall buildings around the world. Police arrested Robert in Frankfurt, Germany, after he scaled a 42-story building without permission and without safety gear. He made that climb in just half an hour. Robert has been doing this since 1994. He has climbed the world's tallest building in Dubai and the Eiffel Tower in Paris. And just last August, he climbed a Hong Kong skyscraper and unfurled a peace banner. There are no table scraps at this cooking school in Paris. Future chefs learning their trade at the Ferrandi School are being taught how to maximize their use of food for a zero-waste menu. Instructor Nicolas Charonnet says they make chips out of potato and carrot skins. Fish trimmings are used to make sauces. Charonnet says traditionally a lot of stuff in the kitchen is being tossed out, and it's a shame not to use it. He adds it makes good business sense too, because using what is being thrown out reduces costs. Still to come, a new technique is being tested to control diseases spread by mosquitoes. Putting food on the table for the poor in Vancouver. What's new in home designs? We'll also have a movie review for you. This is Eagle News. You're watching Eagle News. Scientists with the United Nations are trying a new strategy to combat the spread of dengue and Zika virus. The plan is to try a sterilization technique on mosquitoes. The goal? To reduce the number of dengue cases by 25% by 2025 to 2030. Medical entomologist Jeremy Bouyer says mutated insects will be introduced into the mosquito population.
So the sterile insect technique is an insect birth control method where you release sterile males that will outcompete the wild males in the field, and they will induce sterility in the females so that their eggs will not hatch, and so you will control the next generation. And if you do that for a long time enough, you will be able to reduce and even in some cases eliminate the target population.
Bouyer says they've proven they can reduce the density of mosquito populations, but now they want to determine whether this will actually control the spread of disease.
We already have evidence that SIT is able to reduce the density of mosquitoes very significantly, and now we must prove that it will also impact the transmission of the disease.
The mutated mosquitoes are created randomly by exposing them to radiation, not by genetic engineering. For many of us, grocery shopping is a chore we grudgingly do. But for some in prosperous Canadian cities, a trip to the supermarket is something that's just out of reach because of poverty. Eagle News correspondent Anne Salmerano tells us about a church group in Vancouver that did something to help ease the hunger pangs of the less fortunate.
The Iglesia Ni Cristo, or Church of Christ, through its Felix Y. Manalo Foundation, teamed up with the Greater Vancouver Food Bank to help those in need this winter. INC members spent their time, exerted their efforts, and donated their own resources to feed the hungry through the food bank. Minister of the Gospel, Moriel Cadaccio, who oversees the District of British Columbia, explained the church's campaign to help the needy.
So right now we have this campaign in line with the Worldwide Aid to Humanity in order to help those who are in need, those who, especially here in this part of the world in Canada, those who lack food. So we will be donating some food that was also have been donated by our brethren to the food bank in Vancouver.
Greater Vancouver Food Bank worker Vic Yusuvai commented on the efforts of the members of the church. He also spoke about who this donation will help.
Absolutely wonderful people, especially this church is all Filipino people, wonderful people, very hospitality is the best, and wonderful people. There's not much I can say about these people, how wonderful they are for this donation for the people they need it in Vancouver, the poor people. Greater Vancouver Food Bank feeding about 35,000 people a week. So this donation will go all those people we need it.
In the INC Giving campaign held in British Columbia this year, the church donated 263 boxes weighing a whopping 8,033 pounds of food. Minister of the Gospel, Felmar Sereno, explained why the church donates goods and provides services to those in need.
We hope that when people receive these acts of kindness, it helps them as they take on the challenges of life. We hope that it can bring, at the very least, a smile, that they would feel warmth, that they are not forgotten, that there are people who are striving to help. And of course, as members of the Church of Christ, we do these acts to give glory to our Almighty God, to show God that we love our fellow man, and we want to follow what He teaches us, as recorded in the Holy Scriptures, to reach out to those who are in need.
Homelessness and poverty are seen throughout the Vancouver area. Campaigns such as the one held today are needed to help feed the hungry, especially during the winter season. The pressure of feeding the homeless and hungry in Vancouver is continually growing, but with humanitarian efforts like those of the Church of Christ, residents of the area at least could find some relief from difficulties and comfort in the thought that there is an organization like the church who recognizes and is willing to help them in times of need. Anne Salmerano, Eagle News, 1 with 25.
Home designs are evolving. As Eagle News correspondent Arnie Aquino tells us, the designs are incorporating not only the latest technology, but also borrowing techniques from the past.
Futuristic homes are the way to go. The theme of this season's BC Home and Garden Show is just that, futuristic designs and technology quickly making their way into today's homes. Stephanie Gatsionis, Assistant Show Manager at the BC Home Show, tells us what's new this year at the BC Home and Garden Show.
We have quite a few new things this year. The one that's behind me is our feature home, the yurt. Most people have never even seen a yurt or heard of a yurt before, so we thought it'd be a really interesting way to show some alternative housing options for people.
What's the trend in homes moving toward? Efficiency.
The trend seems to be going towards smaller, more efficient. Nobody's looking at grand and extravagant. They're looking at more practical, like things that work. Yeah. Furniture that provides multi-purposes. I think people just kind of want that easiness about being home with their lifestyle.
She also lets us in on how new technology is making homes self-sufficient.
So, we have a few exhibitors that will showcase you things that will help make your home a bit more energy efficient. Different products that you can bring into your home that are energy efficient, and different kinds of apps that you can control everything from your phone so that you can monitor everything even when you're away, compared to just having somebody check in on your home. They're making it a little bit more self-sufficient. Right. Even our feature home this year, yurts are actually a very small footprint in terms of how they interact with the environment around them as well. They're very friendly towards that. There's not a lot of things that they have to do in terms of the infrastructure and everything like that for the nature around them, which is great.
But why design a yurt? Award-winning interior designer Jamie Banfield tells us why yurts are so chic.
We're seeing this very big trend on glamping, right? So everybody's trying to get away. We're seeing everything on Instagram. Everyone's traveling, getting out there, and we're all, I think, interested in fun and different experiences. So the cool thing about a yurt like this is you got that kind of glamping, kind of that shabby chic kind of getaway. It could be a secondary home.
Jamie, why did you choose to design a yurt?
I think the typical thought of a yurt might be, a secondary space or a home or something that you set up, but then you can actually take down pretty quick. Whereas this is actually a house. So somebody can install it anywhere around the world. It's very cost effective and really easy to install. But the really thing I love about it is there's no posts or anything like that we're trying to deal with for structure wise. And when you walk into a yurt, it might look a little bit closed off, smaller on the inside, but it just opens up because of the elevation of the ceiling. And there's a massive skylight in the center, so it's a lot of bright light. So for us as a design team, it was really fun working on a space that's actually round, because most things we work with and we're taught in school is very square.
Apart from futuristic technology and bringing back the yurt, we also chatted with Eliza Sager, a founder of Leda Buds.
We do a subscription delivery service here in Vancouver, and we source locally grown flowers, and we have a sustainable model.
How did you start in the industry?
I lived in Hawaii for 6 years, and I started this, I loved flowers. I learned how to make traditional hakus and leis, and then as I started approaching and getting into the industry, I got this love for bouquets and flowers, and instead of having the kind of hoity-toity feel with flowers, I really just wanted them to be approachable, touchable, easy to access, and easy to get, but not like grocery store flowers. Some really nice, beautifully arranged flowers.
How is your business model sustainable?
Well, we use no plastics. We have our stem wrap is made with a foam. It's a replacement for foam. It's actually a stem wrap. Our model's driven, not flown. So all of our flowers come in so some of the eucalyptus, for example, is from California, but for the most part we have it's all BC grown and Canada grown. Yeah, so driven, not flown. Most people don't realize that flowers are brought in from all over the world. That's a large carbon footprint, so we're trying to reduce that.
From the BC Home and Garden Show, my name is Arnie Aquino, always 1 with 25.
The latest stop for the EBC Films production of Guerrero was Calgary. Eagle News correspondent Tiffany Alasasas tells us about audience reaction to the film.
The EBC film production of Guerrero continues to delight audiences in North America. At a recent showing in Calgary, Canada, the audience reacted enthusiastically to this touching story.
Here at the Cardell Theatre, moviegoers are excited to attend the first screening of Guerrero in this area. Guerrero follows the story of a promising boxer and younger brother who looks up to him as his inspiration. The movie not only entertains, but also educates the viewers and instills values and lessons through his ups and downs. The film, with its cast of up-and-coming actors and actresses, succeeded in making the audience laugh and cry, with its plot full of twists and turns.
What can you say about the movie?
It was really good. It was really inspiring because, like, no matter how hard, like, anything is, you really should be able to fight. Like, it's really sad though, like, that happened and everything. But I mean, to be able to trust in God and everything, and just be able to fight forward through any hardship, you should be able to do it.
Expectations were high for this movie, as it received multiple awards and nominations internationally.
So how did you like the movie?
I thought it was good and it's very inspiring. I liked it. It was cute.
What were your favorite moments in the movie?
It was probably the end when he was trying to like find his brother.
I think it's when the mom was making him his his shorts for boxing, and then she admits that even though like she can't really stop him from doing it anymore, so she'll just take care. They told him to take care of himself.
I cried a lot. I flooded the whole theater over there, but I was also laughing. So it was a good movie. I want to watch a second movie soon.
Directed by Carlo Ortega Cuevas, who is behind the indie film Walang Take Two. This Filipino film is the first ever full-length movie released by EBC Films.
It appears like in other cities where the film has been shown, Guerrero is a hit with the audience. In Calgary, Canada, I'm Tiffany Alasasas. I am 1 with 25.
Up next, songs of inspiration entertain an audience in Vancouver. Filipino food is on the streets. Knights go to battle in Australia. And this sauna in Finland is pretty crowded. You're watching Eagle News. In Vancouver, a concert featuring inspirational music. We have more on that from Eagle News correspondent Arnie Aquino.
For one night only, here at the Michael J. Fox Theater, local musicians will showcase their talents to an eagerly awaiting crowd.
The event was organized by members of the Iglesia ni Cristo, or Church of Christ, for visitors to enjoy the songs of faith that they put together. When asked why they decided to perform for this event, this is what the musicians had to say.
Pakita daw yung talent. Opo, yun po yun. Para makapakita namin yung hilig namin sa musika. Yung unang kanta, I Will Serve. Para sa Diyos, para sa Ama. Tsaka, ibig sabihin ng kanta ay kahit anong mangyari, pagsubok, patuloy pa rin kaming.
Ano po yun ulit?
Maninindigan po kami sa aming kahalalan. Make everything right. Ano po siya parang isang panalangin ng paghingi ng tawad sa Ama. Kaya para po yun sa lahat ng mga kapatid na nandito na yun nga, napakinggan yung ginawa namin. Sana naramdaman nila yung naramdaman namin habang tinutugtog namin yung kanta.
Hindi lagi yung may gantong event kasi para sa akin, kasi tumutugtog din ako. Bilang musician, lengguwahe kasi music and it's just another medium para ma-relay mo yung message mo sa iba. Kaya maganda pakinggan na may mga iba't ibang kapatid na may mga talento sa music at na nagagamit namin yun bilang medium para ma-relay yung messages namin.
Ito'y napaka magandang pagkakataon, lalong-lalo na sa mga kapatid natin na mahilig sa musika. At ganun din po ay magkaroon sila ng inspirasyon, hindi lang kagaya ng tula. Hindi lang sa pagtula, itatranslate natin, lalagyan ng musika at ialay po natin sa Panginoong Diyos para maging inspirasyon po ito, hindi lang sa mga kapatid na sa iglesia, kundi sa lahat ng tao sa buong mundo na mayroon talagang tunay na pagliligtas sa araw ng paghuhukom.
Event host Paul Olegato tells us why this event was organized.
This was organized and put together because there are a lot of brethren that do want to perform, and there's lots of talent in the church. And this was a venue for them to show their talent, and not only just to show their talent to other people, but to also praise God. So it's a wonderful opportunity to do that.
Iglesia Ni Cristo minister Brother Edgar Allen Hale shares what he hopes guests would take away from this event.
We are hoping that the guests, not only that they would attend this kind of gathering, but they would continue to listen to the words of God being upheld by the church, because that is truly the very meaning of this, to share our faith in music, but most of all that they would know about the true Church of Christ.
From Vancouver, my name is Arnie Aquino, 1 with 25.
Filipino food has become popular in Vancouver. Eagle News correspondent Kathleen Cruz says it has now made the street scene.
Do you like pandesal, adobo, or tocino, but with a twist? Shameless Buns here in Vancouver got you covered. Vancouver's funkiest food jeepney is serving Vancouverites a little taste of Filipino. It may not be your typical Filipino food. That is no problem because the inspiration is still Filipino cuisine. This food truck is a breath of fresh taste. Here is Matt to explain more about their specialties and how they elevated and kind of tried to westernize the cuisine.
So Shameless Buns is a food truck that's all about showcasing Filipino flavors and Filipino food in a really different way than most people probably have experienced with Filipino food before. So we started the business because me personally, being a non-Filipino, fell in love with the cuisine. We created it because we wanted to take this cuisine that, in our opinion, is really misrepresented, that not a lot of people are familiar with, and make it kind of cool and make it kind of fun and funky. We saw that there was a real kind of void in Vancouver for this type of Filipino food.
There is more that Shameless Bun offers that can also cater vegetarians, all for a quick grab.
So what we came up with was a jackfruit coconut adobo. So what we do is we braise our jackfruit in coconut milk, soy sauce, vinegar, bay leaves, garlic, and there's just this beautiful creamy, tangy. We use pandesal. So as you know, pandesal is the beloved bun of the Philippines, hence why we're called Shameless Buns. Really soft and light and airy. We have the happy ending, which contains a lot of cool Filipino ingredients: homemade ube jam, coconut macapuno, coconut jam, condensed milk, Milo for like a little nostalgic kick.
The creativity that Matt and his girlfriend had put in to fully conceptualize Shameless Bun menu has created a lot of noise not only among those who haven't tried Filipino food, but most especially to the Filipino community.
I can proudly say that Filipino people love our food. Some of the older generation is sometimes a bit skeptical. They don't see rice on the truck, they don't see lumpia, they don't see pancit, but when they try our food, their minds are usually blown. They absolutely love it.
From Vancouver, Canada, Kathleen Cruz, Eagle News, 1 with 25.
This will remind some of you of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. In a small town in the Australian state of Victoria, it was a scene from medieval times. Knights clad in suits of armor, mounted on their trusty steeds, doing battle. Australia and England took their sports rivalry to another level in a jousting tournament. Phil Leach, captain of Australia's jousting team, says opponents basically charge at each other.
Jousting is a sport where you ride at each other on horses in armour and you hit each other with your lance, which is a big stick you've got. Generally what happens if you hit someone hard enough is your lance breaks and you're awarded points based on how well you can break your own lance.
Now here's how the scoring works. Knights who break their wooden lances against an opponent's torso get 1 point for a broken lance. But if it shatters, they get 3 points. Andy Dean, who captains the English jousting team, says the sport began making a comeback about 50 years ago.
The competition that sort of loosely become sort of known as the Ashes, it's England v Australia. England has obviously from the early 1960s really been pushing historical jousting. And unbeknownst to us, the other side of the planet, Australians were doing the same.
Organizers are hoping the two-day tournament will become a regular event every 2 years to coincide with the cricket test matches between the two countries. Oh, and what was the outcome of the inaugural tournament? Australia won, 89-75. We wrap things up with this story from Finland. Bathers from 101 different countries were shoehorned into a sauna in Helsinki in a successful attempt to reclaim a Guinness World Record. Guinness adjudicator Glenn Pollard says China won the title in 2013.
This is the record for the most nationalities in a sauna, currently held by China, and they achieved 99 in 2013. Today, I have counted and officially verified here in Helsinki a total of 101. You have a
Pollard says everyone entering the sauna was checked.
They have to see evidence of their passport or their national identity card current to show what their nationality is. Also, they have to all be in the sauna at the same time for a minimum of 5 minutes at a minimum temperature of 60 degrees Celsius.
The attempt was organized by university students who asked foreign embassies in Helsinki to help rally as many different nationalities as possible. That's this week's Eagle News. Join us next week for stories that matter to you. Visit our websites at eaglenews.net and eaglenewslive.com. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/eaglenews and on Facebook at facebook.com/eaglenews. Thank you for watching. I'm Thomas I. Likeness. I'm 1 with 25.